Everything's tanking right now. Feels like chaos. Honestly, I wasn't even planning on filming tonight, but with the market falling apart like this, I've got a few things I want to say. Because every time this happens, and it's happened countless times before, people panic. They freak out. I get it. Nobody likes watching their portfolio shrink. You start questioning yourself. Did I mess up? Should I have sold earlier? But seriously, breathe. Relax. It's not the end of the world. I promise you, this isn't the death of the bull run. There wasn't even some huge news story that caused this drop, it just happened. And honestly, that's usually how it goes. If you're feeling nervous right now, that's completely normal. You're not dumb. You're not weak. You're just human. But I want you to know this. Those feelings, while natural, don't line up with reality. Because logically, there's no reason to panic. I don't pretend to know the exact short-term moves of this market, but long-term, much higher. And I've explained many times why I have such strong conviction. Yes, I'll admit we're closer to the end of this cycle than the beginning, but history shows that even near the end of a bull market, these kinds of dips are completely normal. Crypto has been behaving the way it always has over the last 16 years, so don't act shocked when it does exactly what the data suggests. Quick disclaimer before I continue, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have a finance background. None of this is financial advice. I'm just a crypto enthusiast who enjoys sharing my thoughts for fun. Now, as I'm recording this, it's past midnight 12:19 am Central, Monday, August 18th, 2025. I noticed this drop a couple of hours ago and even posted on X around 10:04 p.m. with a screenshot of XRP. At that point, it had just hit a 24-hour low of $3.01, while the high was about $3.15. I captioned it with a little sarcasm, "There goes my life-changing wealth." Obviously, I was kidding. Because here's the truth, it really doesn't matter. My net worth has been more volatile over the past year than ever before, and yet I've never been more calm about it. That's because I know, without question, that the overall trend for crypto, and especially XRP, is upward over time. Even if the doomsayers turn out to be right, and we're slipping into a bear market, which I personally don't believe, guess what? I'm still holding the exact same amount of XRP I've had for over 5 years. If it takes a few more years for the market to recover, fine, I'll wait, and when it does, I'll sell at even higher prices. That's the mindset you need with crypto. This market is insanely volatile, and stress doesn't change the outcome. XRP has already proven itself as a winner in the crypto space. So if your portfolio is XRP heavy like mine, why stress? I get why people feel that way, but logically, it just doesn't add up. So yeah, you're normal if you're anxious. But be weird with me, choose not to stress. Because there's really no need to. Right now, XRP is sitting right around $3 even, while Bitcoin is trading at roughly $115,800. This is clearly a market-wide correction. It's not something unique to XRP. Over the last 24 hours, XRP hit a high of $3.15 and dipped to about $2.97, at least according to LiveCoinWatch. On certain exchanges, I've even seen it go as low as $2.96. Take a look at the charts. Here's XRP's 24-hour action, and if I switch over to Bitcoin, it's practically identical. Same pattern, same movement. There's nothing wrong. With XRP specifically, it's just moving in sync with the broader market, like it always does. And here's the key thing, XRP's fundamentals have never looked stronger. That's exactly why it has remained in the top 10 cryptos by market cap since the beginning. So no, it doesn't make sense to lose your head over this. Please let that sink in. Now, I can't tell you what to do with your own money, whether to buy, sell, or hold. That's entirely your decision. But what I can tell you is that panicking here just doesn't line up with reality. The market is still in a very strong position. Now, zoom out for a second and take a big picture look. From this point forward in the video, I'll be walking through a bunch of reactions from different analysts, most of it gathered over just the last few hours. I've got a ton of tabs open here, and if you're watching along, you'll see what I'm referring to on screen. And here's the thing. These analysts aren't panicking. They're not suddenly changing their outlooks. I'll give a little context for some of what they're saying, but the overwhelming message is the same: nothing has changed. Higher timeframes remain intact. These are analysts with proven track records, and they're not shifting their expectations because of this dip. For example, Cointelegraph shared a slide that actually came from Bank of America. Let me read it to you. Stats: 75% of global fund managers have zero crypto exposure in their portfolios. Only 9% have any digital assets at all, according to BofA's latest survey. Let that sink in. That means the vast majority of institutional money still isn't here yet. And you holding XRP right now, you're early. You're way ahead of the curve. Do you honestly believe, like I do, that as time passes, this industry only gets bigger? That we'll move into a world where crypto as an asset class isn't just a few $1 trillion, but $10 trillion, $50 trillion, even $100 trillion plus someday? Because I believe that with complete conviction. And if you also believe that, why worry about a short-term drop? It makes no sense. The reality is, most of the capital that will eventually pour into this space hasn't arrived yet. You already front-ran that wave. You're one of the earliest XRP holders there will ever be. Think about that. XRP has been around for about 12 years now, over a decade of consistent survival in one of the most cutthroat industries imaginable. That makes it one of the clear early winners of crypto. And in my view, it'll still be around 50 or even 100 years from now. So keep that in mind when emotions start creeping in. Here's another post worth noting, this one from Cryptoseth, who has nearly 80,000 followers. He pointed out that over 116,000 traders were liquidated in this move, with total liquidations hitting about $464 million. His message was blunt: this is why you don't play with fire, children. And honestly, he's right. Leverage trading, like that, is playing with fire, and the market just reminded a lot of people why. And let me just say this straight up: leverage trading is playing with fire. Seriously, if you're just holding spot, you can't get liquidated. But the moment you start leveraging, you're basically asking for trouble. Don't do it. It's reckless. Now, moving on, here's a post from the chart analyst Cryptos, which he shared around 10:43 p.m. By that time, XRP had already taken a hit. The sell-off really kicked in around p.m. Sunday night, when XRP was sitting right around $3. By 8 o'clock, it had slid down to roughly $3.08, and then boomed straight off a cliff. At 10:43 p.m., he wrote, XRP dropping back into our most important daily support level. Wicks below aren't a problem. Vols need to make sure we hold and close above. Now, the zone he's pointing to isn't labeled super precisely on his chart, but visually looks to be in the $2.9 range, probably somewhere around $2.92 to $2.95. Then in a follow-up, he specifically mentioned $2.94 as a major weekly support level. So that's clearly the area he's watching. And as I record this, XRP is still holding above that mark, though of course, things could dip further. Here's another perspective, this one from Chartangy, posted at 9:13 p.m., so about an hour into this latest plunge. Around that time, XRP was hovering close to $3.03. He shared this XRP update: the August bounce from $2.72 to $3.38 was a 3-wave corrective move up. Unlike other coins which mostly had 5-wave impulse moves up, XRP looks like a B-wave. That suggests we're likely to revisit the August lows in the coming days or weeks, which would complete the C-wave of the correction that began in late July. In other words, he's expecting that we might have more downside to push through before this correction is finished. And he's not the only one saying this. In fact, let me pause here to point out, in my last video just 6 or 7 hours ago, highlighted multiple analysts calling for a potential deeper correction that could last days, maybe even weeks. It caught my attention because there was such strong consensus around it. And sure enough, here we are. And here we are, it played out this fast. Now, I'm not claiming to know whether this correction wraps up quickly or drags on for weeks. Maybe the analysts calling for a longer correction are right. The point is, when you start hearing a lot of respected chart watchers saying the same thing, there's usually some truth to it. That's exactly why I pay attention to so many different analysts. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a chart guy myself. Honestly, diving into technical analysis puts me to sleep. I've picked up a bit here and there just by accident over the years, but I have zero interest in mastering that stuff because, frankly, it wouldn't change how I invest anyway. My strategy has been locked in since 2017. I buy, I hold, and I do nothing unless the price reaches a level where selling would literally change my life. That's it. That's my rule, and I'm strict about sticking to it. So sure, maybe this correction drags out a little longer, but none of that alters the bigger picture. The higher timeframe trend hasn't changed one bit. So here's something interesting. Someone commented on Chartingy's post and asked, what about that $7 to $8 wave you mentioned? Where are we on that? Now, Chartingy is known for having one of the more conservative price targets for this cycle around $8. But if you look at his chart right now, his current projection only points up to about $4.6. That's why the guy was pressing him about the higher target. Chartingy responded by saying, the fifth wave can easily extend, but this is my conservative target zone. So even with a cautious outlook, we're still talking about new all-time highs and entering price discovery territory. And honestly, I respect that. He's conservative compared to some of the more explosive predictions out there, and that's fine. Like I've said before, the truth usually lands somewhere between the extremes. Most of the time, the wild, super high, or super low calls don't end up being right, but every once in a while, a minority opinion nails it. Perfect example, the blockchain backer. In the last cycle, he was calling for Bitcoin to top out around 72K. Everyone laughed at him. Some people were downright nasty. And what happened? Bitcoin peaked just shy of $70,000. He was almost spot on. It was a minority opinion, but he was right while the crowd was wrong. So, yeah, sometimes those conservative or contrarian takes deserve more respect than they get. Now, on the flip side, I came across a comment from someone username looked like with a bunch of E's at the end who asked, hodl or sell and try to buy lower around 270, and honestly, that's exactly how people get wrecked. Trying to time the market like that is dangerous. Sure, sometimes it works out and you manage to increase your stack, but a lot of the time, it backfires. You're adding unnecessary risk. That's why I always say, the biggest threat to your own financial success is you, not the market you. Because the moment you start tinkering, jumping in and out, trying to get cute with short-term moves, you're exposing yourself to risk you don't even need to take. I get it when prices are falling. It feels like you have to do something. You feel like taking action will somehow protect you. But in reality, doing nothing, just holding, is usually the smartest move. You can win by staying patient, yet, all it takes is one bad attempt at timing, maybe the 10th time you try it, and suddenly, your whole strategy blows up. Why even introduce that risk when life-changing gains are still achievable by simply holding? Taking on that kind of risk just doesn't make sense. You don't have to be some genius to succeed in crypto, you just have to avoid being reckless. Don't fool yourself into thinking you're smarter than the market. I certainly don't. That's exactly why I stick to doing nothing. And funny enough, that's why I consistently outperform most traders. Think about it, 90 to 95% of traders lose money. Same story in stocks, same story in crypto. Meanwhile, I win simply by holding. No stress, no games, no pretending I can outsmart the market. Just holding has beaten most people's trading strategies. And interestingly enough, Chartingy actually replied to that sell and buy comment I mentioned earlier. His response was simple, hodl. In my opinion, dips are never guaranteed, even when they look likely. That's the truth. Even if you're convinced the market's headed lower, and even if you end up being right, so what? Let's say by the time you watch this, prices are down even more. It's not just on fire, it's double, triple, quadruple on fire. Okay, and does it really matter? If you don't sell, you still own the exact same amount of crypto. That's what people forget. And sure, maybe once in a while you'll look back and think, oh man, I'd have timed that drop. But the danger is, once you start down that path, you'll keep trying it. and eventually you'll get it wrong. That's when people blow up their whole strategy. Now, let's bring up a post from Casey Trades. I'm not going to read through her entire thread here, it was a long one, and I already shared it a few days back, but what's important to note is this: she's actually the only analyst I follow who has come right out and said the Bitcoin top is already in. Now, a few others have hinted it might be possible, but she's the one taking a hard stance. And look, I'm not convinced. Personally, I don't buy into the Bitcoin already top theory, but if she turns out to be right, I'll absolutely give her the credit she deserves, just like the blockchain backer got credit last cycle when he basically nailed the Bitcoin peak while most people mocked him. Anyway, around 10:39 p.m., so almost 2 hours ago as I'm recording this, Casey posted that her wave one of a target for Bitcoin is $112,000. And you'll notice as we go through this video, multiple analysts are pointing to that same $112,000 level as a really important zone. Even if you don't care about Bitcoin specifically, pay attention because the whole crypto market tends to move together. If Bitcoin heads toward that level, you should fully expect XRP to follow the broader trend lower too. Now, someone replied to her and said, XRP already tagged $2.96. If we hold that and bounce, does that mean new all-time highs? And Casey's response was simple: yes, I think we'll see new all-time highs off this support. Now, it's possible we see a double bottom, or maybe even dip into that $2.92 range, while Bitcoin drifts toward $112,000. But here's the thing: when you listen to analysts who've actually been around longer than 5 minutes, the consistent theme is clear. Yes, we're in a pullback, and maybe prices push a little lower, but it's absolutely not the end of the story. On the bigger picture charts, XRP still looks solid, altcoins still look strong, and most of the analysts I follow still expect Bitcoin to perform really well too. Sure, there's always that one contrarian voice, and if they turn out to be right, I'll give them credit, no problem. But honestly, I'd be stunned if the market as a whole doesn't climb higher from here. What, are we suddenly going to skip an alt season for the first time in history, even though global liquidity has exploded? That doesn't make sense. Historically, nearly 90% of the time, Bitcoin and the broader crypto market move together. So, why would that correlation just vanish now, for no real reason? Liquidity has to flow somewhere, and it's pretty obvious where it's headed. There's a reason that particular metric gets referenced so often. It has a really strong track record, and it's one you definitely want to understand. Now, let's circle back to Casey Trades. Even with this correction, she remains extremely bullish on XRP. She's saying, yes, even if the price dips lower, we're still on track for brand new all-time highs. And she's not the only one. Chart analyst Bark, in a post from August 12th, called for XRP to reach $25, along with some big moves in other coins. That's not just single-digit growth, that's way into the double digits. And is he worried about this recent pullback? Nope, not at all. In fact, just under an hour ago he posted, "They're trying to shake you out. They want your crypto. Don't give it to them." Now, look, I don't personally buy into the whole idea of some shadowy figure pulling strings behind the scenes. That's not where I'm coming from. But what I do believe, and what's absolutely true, is that there are plenty of traders, firms, and institutions ready to scoop up your coins if you let fear take over and panic sell. If that's the choice you make, hey, it's your decision. But just know there's always someone eager to buy during the blood in the streets. Here's another perspective. About a year ago, Coin Edition ran a headline where analyst Lib Crypto predicted XRP would hit $10 in the coming months. And guess what? His stance hasn't changed. He's still expecting XRP to push deep into double-digit territory. Just a few days ago, on August 14th, he posted about expecting a tough stretch for crypto, what he called a red season, before the next leg up in the bull run. And in my last video, I pointed out several analysts saying the exact same thing. So, has Lib Crypto shifted his outlook after this latest dip? Absolutely not. Tonight, he doubled down, saying, "Red Week continues, business as usual." He's not worried in the slightest, and honestly, why would he be? He's been calling $10 XRP since last year. Nothing has changed. Alright, so I actually shared this in a recent video, but it's worth bringing up again. Analyst Karg, who has nearly 190,000 followers, posted on August 15th that he'd seen more than 50 Bitcoin charts this week comparing today's price action to the 2021 top. Now, to be honest, I personally hadn't seen that many of those comparisons floating around, mostly because I don't follow a lot of those specific analysts. The one example I did mention was from Casey Trades. But then Credible Crypto jumped in, and he wasn't having it. He basically said, "Look, I already debunked this whole 2021 top comparison 6 months ago when Bitcoin was $30,000 cheaper. The context is completely different. The structure is completely different. And overall, the market is positioned way higher." And he added that even if we see a deeper pullback, the bigger picture still points higher. Now fast forward 3 days from August 15th to today, August 18th. The market's pulling back at the time I'm recording this. Maybe it's up, maybe it's down by the time you're watching. You guys are living in the future. I'm just catching you up from the past. But here's the key. Credible Crypto already accounted for this possibility. He literally said he wouldn't be surprised to see another dip before the next move up. So this isn't shaking him at all. In fact, just tonight around 10:30 p.m., he posted an update saying basically everything he was tracking, including Bitcoin, just hit his downside targets. Now, Bitcoin holds these levels. We could see a bounce across the board. If it breaks lower, we probably go lower across the board. But he was clear, this is short-term action, not a shift in the bigger cycle. Translation: this pullback doesn't change the long-term picture. He's still expecting much higher prices before the cycle is over. And remember, he's consistently predicted XRP topping somewhere in the $20 to $30 range this run. I can't say for sure if he'll be right, nobody can, but it's definitely not out of the question. And just to add another voice here, Income Sharks also chimed in recently. He told people not to panic, reminding them that a trendline break was already expected. And he highlighted $112,000 as a major support level for Bitcoin, which is interesting because I've seen several analysts pointing to that exact same target. So let's check in with Captain Fabric. He pointed out that Bitcoin's rising wedge breakdown on the daily chart has been confirmed. Now, if that breakdown continues, here are the possible downside levels he's watching. First support is sitting around $110,000 to $112,000. Below that, the next demand zone is $105,000 to $108,000. And if things get really ugly, there's the psychological zone around $98,000 to $100K. Now, am I losing sleep over that? Absolutely not. And neither should you. Don't be out here acting like fragile little baby back crybabies every time Bitcoin dips. That's my warm, slightly sarcastic uncle advice in these kinds of moments. Look, I've been through every roller coaster since November 10th, 2017, the very first day ever bought crypto. And since then, I never sold a single XRP, never cashed out of the market at all. So if you think this latest pullback is enough to shake me out, forget about it. This isn't scary. Not even close. I'm telling you from experience, everything is going to be fine, regardless of where the price is by the time you're actually watching this video. Could XRP be under $2.98 by then? Maybe. Could it be way lower? Sure. But here's the thing. If you're feeling nervous, come back and rewatch this whenever you need to calm down. Fear is normal. You're normal if you feel it. I'm the weirdo who doesn't get scared during these drops. But here's the truth. Whether it's 1 year, 3 years, 5, or even 10 years from now, you won't even remember this dip. It won't matter. The big picture hasn't changed. Number goes up. That's the game. Especially for XRP. I'm more confident than ever. And just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. Don't buy or sell based on what I say. I'm just sharing my perspective.